What is up, everybody? Chris Jardine here, aka Snaggle J, General Manager of the TGS Cincinnati Reds. And this is an episode I've been trying to get recorded for a few days. Unfortunately, I have been under the weather. You may hear me sniffle a little bit throughout the episode, so for that, I apologize in advance. But in the name of getting the content done, this is going to be my 2030 draft review. I'm going to try to keep it a little shorter than my usual draft reviews. And to be honest, that shouldn't be that hard because I feel like this draft was probably the least impactful of the three that I've been part of so far. I felt like the first couple of drafts, there was some very solid talent worth breaking down beyond the first and second rounds. But I really feel like that in the 2030 draft, that's just not the case. But I am going to give some thought process into kind of how I went about this. I will say, finishing one game away from having the first overall pick might be one of the biggest, I don't want to say mistakes, but to not. So this draft was really the draft of one. Santillan was easily going to be the first overall pick, regardless of who picked it, regardless of whether it was XTO or me. We both had said Santillan was the guy. The combo of the contact and the power with the gap, his power and gap almost already developed at 16 when he was drafted. Obviously, the defensive range is there. The error not great, but he's got speed. So really just a multi-dimensional 16-year-old who, we're recording this on the game date is July 1st, so he's already hitting 308 in 54 plate appearances in A-ball. So putting in the work there. So once I knew we weren't going to get Santillan, it really became a scramble because I feel like there were 4 or 5 guys that could have made sense at number 2. And really, it just came around to who I thought was going to be the best fit. Now, for the longest time, I had decided that I was going to take Barton Messick. I felt like he was a very unique profile, very power heavy, enough range that you could play him at shortstop. With that arm and double play combo as well. He would have been a very unicorn-esque kind of shortstop with that kind of power. He does have a bit of speed, pretty solid. And then if the range deteriorates, you can move him to second or move him to third. And I still think he would have been an extremely unique profile at either of those spots. The downside was Messick got hurt. Was a pretty severe I think was it an Achilles injury, or I don't remember what the injury was, but Messick got hurt and was injured for the couple of months leading into the draft, and might actually still be injured if I'm not mistaken. If I go have a look at his profile here, he's still hurt for 20 more days. So he's that kind of took him out of the running for me. So the guys I were really considering was obviously, the bats. So Vincent Thompson, who we ended up picking, we'll get into more of that in a minute. Hopper and Bustler, who actually didn't end up going till 18, which I find kind of surprising. I felt like Bustler was actually a pretty nice pick, but again, can't really play the outfield. Would be more of a first base guy. So when I looked at those, guys in a vacuum, really, I think the obvious choice was Thompson. So we end up taking again. Let's just look at this part for a second, right? Just look at him on the surface, just strictly ratings. That's a great potential bat. The power is almost already there. He's going to strike out a bit, but what big power hitter doesn't? He's got enough range that he could stick in the outfield. In a corner spot. And if he does happen to drop that range to 50, That's probably still good enough. It's better than some of the guys I'm trotting out there now. If it drops to 45, he can come in and play some first base, which is fine. Uh, you know, the the bat is, I don't want to call that a generational bat, but it's outside of Santillan probably the best bat in the draft, and depending on how things shake out, he could be just as good as Santillan with the stick. The big thing for me was, not a great personality profile. And that was sort of the hang up with all of these guys. The guys that had a good personality profile, the ratings were kind of questionable. And then for the guys that had the horrible profiles, the ratings were there. So most people seem to agree that Thompson was the consensus number 2. Again, he's not really hitting great in rookie, but you know what? It's early. I'm not gonna, it's not too. I'm not too worried about that. He's still adjusting to the rigors of minor league baseball. I will say, I there's part of me that I wanted to take Messick anyway, but again with that injury, the other guy that I really had considered was Lacona Jr., and that is purely from the standpoint of pitching. This league is so devoid of top end pitching. The drafts have almost no pitching in them at this point. I think there was only maybe 5 pitchers taken in the first round. That includes the supplemental. And none of them really have the makings of, I think Ronson Dries is a nice pick. But none of them really have the makings of a superstar. And I think that was sort of my thing, like with Lacona Jr. He's got some velo room to go. So that stuff could very easily turn into an 80 stuff somewhere down the road. Arizona's got him in Double-A. He's pitching pretty good there. 5 starts, 25 innings. He's walking a lot of guys, which is not great. Not something he did a whole lot of in college. So the walk rate is maybe a concern. What's his control right now? 35. Okay, that's not surprising. So it'll be time will tell what Lacona Jr. ends up being. But I think for me, right, number 2. And very likely that we're not going to be able to pick this high next year, given the way the season's kind of gone, which is a different episode all in and amongst itself. I think we made the most of what we needed to do there. Pick the best guy for the spot. I will say, Kingery was another guy that I looked at. I like a lot of these picks. Again, the guy's trending towards the defensive shortstop. Stallworth is just that defense is insane. And I mean, he can even back up in the outfield, which is great. Mendieta could be a great guy. Again, he's 16, so long way to go there. But we'll see if that range holds. I think if that bat develops, he could be a great second baseman if the range doesn't hold. Hopper, D'Amico, we had a little catcher run here. I think there was 4 catchers taken in the first round, 3. I really liked Tincher with the 80 catcher ability. Again, the arm leaves something to be desired, but again, could be a nice avoid case kind of guy there. LeConte, this one kind of made me scratch my head, but again, could be a great Oracle guy with the gap here. 70 catcher ability is nice. Weewa, who is already in the big leagues for Detroit and hitting a solid 360, came right to the big leagues. Very aggressive there from the Tigers, and I mean it's paying off. He's hitting 360 so far, not walking a lot, but the over 1,000 OPS, a nice gap profile here, and some great defense in center field. So Weewa already in the big leagues and making an impact for the Tigers. Some of the other picks I really liked in the first, again, Ceniceros was a guy that we'll kind of see what happens. 16, he could be maybe the most impactful pitcher taken in this draft, but again, he's 16, he's got a long way to go. Side armor as well, which is again in the OOTP realm, doesn't usually spell good things for somebody as a starter when you got that sidearm profile, because he'll likely be very splitty. But again, a long way to go. Could work out for the Brewers in the future. Caden McLeod was a guy that I was foolishly hoping would last until the second round, and then I knew he wouldn't, but 80 outfield range, 70 infield range, 80 speed, 80 steal, and again, not a great bat profile, but with the speed and steal, and he should probably get on base enough. McLeod could be a nice 2-3 wins above replacement player towards the back end of somebody's lineup and play an amazing center field. I like Goethals as well. Nice little profile here with the bat, mostly contact driven. But I really like that pick for Houston. Again, another guy that was on my short list for getting into the second round. A couple other guys that I'm kind of surprised. Franklin McLaughlin was a guy, again, a interesting profile, but his you could not have a worse personality. So this is going to be interesting to see what happens here with the Beavers. I know, if I'm not mistaken, the Beavers are having some financial difficulties, which likely explains why McLaughlin has not signed. So we'll see. McLaughlin could be a guy that ends up in the free agent pool once the draft signing deadline goes by. I'm sure somebody will be willing to take a chance on him with this. But man, that's about as bad as you could get in terms of a personality profile. But yes, again, the draft really dropped off in a hurry. I think for me, we got to the second round. I wasn't really in on Cash Balls, but when he was still there at 36th overall, I kind of had to grab him. Mostly because, again, we're moving to, or we've moved to a more hitter friendly environment. And I mean, this again would be a very, very nice bat. This reminds me a lot of our first round pick last year, Noel Carlson. Noel Carlson, of course, has significantly more range, but Cash Falls, if he can reach this bat profile, and I mean, he's, other than contact, he's not really that far away. He does have some jumps to do. Again, he has started to. All of my picks have started struggling, which is just great. But again, if he can get to this bat profile, I think he could be a great second base piece. And for us, we have a lot of second base guys right now. I mean, we're playing Krause there. We have Rowlands. We have Carlson, who could eventually need to move to second to get the necessary playing time. Dainzer's done an amazing job for us at short, playing well above his weight so far this year. And again, we'll talk more about that when we do the team update episode later this week. But I like the Cash Falls pick. I don't necessarily think he was the guy that I really, really wanted, but I think it was a good pick. And again, if he can get to this bat, it could be a really great second baseman. Kurt Schlitt in the third. Again, this is just kind of taking an arm for the sake of taking an arm and taking the best available arm on the board at the time. I had started looking at Schlitt, in the middle of the second round and really, really hoped that he was going to last, and he did. I like what he's giving. Again, 50, 60, 45. Again, try to boost up the movement of our guys. So, I like it. He's 18. He's got some ways to go. He's got only 3 pitches, but they're 3+ pitches, 65 stamina. So again, we'll see what we got here. We were able to get him signed. He wanted $6.5 million, which again, with the financial situation we have, I think is probably why he dropped a little bit. And for us, we were able to make it work. So I don't hate the pick. I think it was. Again, we wanted to take a pitcher. The best available pitcher was there, and it was Schlitt, so we'll see where it goes. Fourth round, we get Gadget Bonham. I mean, this is more or less just taking a catcher, and because of the name. 70 catcher ability, 50 arm, 55 power. That's going to be kind of your profile. Bonham could be a light-hitting, average-wise catcher with some pop. He is hitting 242. And OPS is only 639 so far in rookie, which again, I told you, all my guys are sucking. So, a defensive first guy with a little bit of pop. We'll see where it goes. Again, this is a lot of the name. I mean, Gadget Bonham, just a great name. Nickname Zeppelin. You'll love to see what we got coming from him here. We'll see if we get anything out of him. Jimmy Baxley, this is again taking a defensive profile, really just trying to bolster that infield defense. You see 70 range, 75 errors, 70 double play. The arm not great. The bat profile, again, this is a more of an Oracle bat profile with the gap, and we're not playing in an Oracle-esque environment anymore. One of the reasons why I like Baxley was the speed as well. I think the big thing with these, when you're taking defensive-oriented players, you're looking for another way for them to contribute. Again, Brian Daenzer, what makes him, great, and again, Brian Daenzer is way better than these guys defensively, but, he plays great defense, but then he also is going to steal 20 bags. So you're looking for a way to have these defensive guys contribute somewhere else. I mean, Baxley, if he got to this, he's going to be a 210, 215 guy who might hit 25 doubles and might steal 15 bags. The stealing rating's not great, but the speed, he'd get 12 to 15 and get caught probably 10 times. So again, you're picking a defensive guy with some ability to contribute elsewhere. We had a little run on catchers here in the middle, likely due to some mismanagement of the draft list. But again, Iguana Wolford, name, 75 catcher ability. I was really trying to improve the catcher abilities in my system. I felt like I needed a couple of more. I felt like one of the reasons why some of my pitchers were struggling was that, they were pitching to guys with 45, 50 catcher ability. We do have a very solid catcher roster now in the minors, with adding Bonham and Wolford and to guys like Grishaber and Leon McConnell. It's been good. Max Bugby, again, nothing special here. I do like Capano Rotaro. He has actually started very hot, hitting 352 and OPS at 1135 so far in rookie, which is just wicked. I love to see that. 8 homers in 88 at bats. 1.16 wins above replacement already. Only the second player in the game to be from the Marshall Islands, by the way. So you love to see that. But absolutely tearing the cover off the ball so far. Rotaro is your more, obviously, not defensive catcher. I thought this was an interesting pick here. Again, this is the 10th round. You've got a very interesting bird profile here, which, again, for us in a hitter-friendly environment, not terrible. But, again, he's not going to be able to stick around as a catcher. That's just not going to work. He's going to end up having to be a DH. Which, again, DH with this profile is just not happening. So we'll have some fun with that in the minors. And that's pretty much, the more interesting guys. Snitch Selesky, interesting name here. More I, avoid K driven. Nothing special with any of the pitchers that we took later on. Again, this is just taking guys and hoping for some kind of flyer around, get some TCR or something. But again, just I will say, for the most part, this draft was not as strong as the 28 and 29 drafts, in my opinion. They were very. There were some really nice, interesting pieces at the top, which I think is great. Again, Santillan was sort of the big prize. Again, given the fact that he was 16. Can hit for average, going to hit for power, going to hit for gap, going to steal some bags, going to play pretty solid defense. And then after that, everybody had a flaw. So, I think that's kind of when the drafts are more interesting, because you're going to see somebody jump up and take a Aiden Deering, for example, who, again, really interesting profile. Interesting bat here, can play defense in the infield and the outfield, although the outfield arm is going to be a bit of a struggle. But, that's when I think you see people do some interesting things in the draft, right? When there's, everyone's got flaws. And I think that made for an interesting draft at the very least. But I think ultimately, when it's all said and done, the 2029 draft is going to, the 2030 draft is going to widely be regarded as one of the weaker, talent wise. And I think when we look back and do the wins above replacement analysis, I think it's gonna be mostly driven by, guys in a handful of guys from this. Um, but hey, we'll see. A lot of things can happen. TCR is always around the horizon. Overall, I'm happy. A lot of us, a lot of what we're doing is banking on Vincent Thompson to become an absolute stud and just absolutely just mash the ball for us. Which again, in the lineup that we've had, and the ability that the Reds have shown to score runs this year, if Vincent Thompson can develop and be in the lineup, say 2032, we could be looking at one of the better offenses in the league. Where our team we've really done a good job building the offense, and I think Vincent Thompson could fit in that very nicely in the middle of the order as a massive pop guy. Anyway, that's kind of my quick review of the 2030 draft. Thank you guys for watching or listening, and until next time, keep swinging for the fences.